From the headquarters of Venezuela English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefania Bravo. This is From the South. The Venezuelan president has said that 7.5 tons of medicines have arrived to the country to strengthen their healthcare system. Maduro announced this during a meeting with healthcare representatives from Russia, Cuba, and the Pan American Health Organization.
7.5 tons of medicines are coming in from Russia. So I want to thank to the Pan American Health Organization, through his representative in Venezuela, and Russian President Vladimir Putin, for the aid they are providing for us. Each week, those medicines will be arriving to Venezuela. And who is paying for it? The Venezuelan government.
Earlier, President Maduro also announced that the country's land border with Brazil will be closed. Maduro added he is considering doing the same with the Colombian border.
From 8 p.m. local time on February 21st, the land border with Brazil will be completely and absolutely closed until further notice. I am considering a complete closure of the border with Colombia. As they say, a prepared man is worth two, so a prepared people is worth two as well.
And the Vice President of Venezuela said in a news conference that the government has delivered a list of food and medicine required this year to the UN. And she also added that the solution to the nation's woes continues to be the lifting of the economic blockade.
I also want to recall what the supposed humanitarian aid of the United States has meant for humanity. Every time that the United States says that it's going to deliver humanitarian aid, it's to attack, to bring war, to bring violence.
Over 1,000 people belonging to Venezuela's indigenous communities have rallied in solidarity with President Nicolás Maduro near the Colombian border. The rally took place in the municipality of La Guajira, where most inhabitants belong to the Wayuu indigenous people. They are demanding an end to foreign meddling and call for a peaceful resolution to the political situation gripping their country. U.S. social justice group Code Pink has once again interrupted a meeting in Washington, D.C. over the political situation in Venezuela. Co-founder Media Benjamin and National Director Ariel Gold disrupted an event where a member of the Venezuelan opposition was speaking. They denounced him and others as part of a U.S. coup plans in Venezuela.
I want to say these people are fraud. They don't represent the Venezuelan people. They are representing the U.S. orchestrated coup. This is a very dangerous situation. They want to create a crisis at the border that would be a justification for U.S. intervention. This has nothing to do with a humanitarian situation. Indeed, for a humanitarian situation, the U.S. would lift the economic sanctions that have exacerbated the crisis.
A leader of CARICOM says if the U.S. really wants to help the people of Venezuela, it would remove its sanctions on the country. The Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines said it to a local radio station, Star FM, on Thursday.
For the Venezuelan government, the money which they have in the United States, the money which has been frozen, amounts to 11 billion US dollars. Wow. That is money which you can buy food and medicines with. And what they're frozen for PDVSA, the oil company, is 7 billion. So you may take a few $100,000 worth of food and have it by the border at Colombia and say you want to help the people of Venezuela. Why are you committing economic warfare against them? Yes. By these sanctions, which are crippling the economy, and as one United Nations rapporteur, special rapporteur who reported last year in September, was on the ground. The first one who had gone on the ground in Venezuela for 21 years. said that the countries which are imposing the sanctions, they are putting the country under siege, and what they're doing should be investigated as a possible war crime.
6 journalists from the Caribbean are on the ground in Venezuela as part of a fact-finding mission as the political situation continues. The mission comes as mainstream media has failed to objectively report on Venezuela and has distorted crucial facts on the conflict. Caribbean journalists, as part of truth-seeking mission, will also cover Friday's meeting of the Bank of Alba to be held in Caracas. Sí, sí. Leo. Alternative media outlet In the Now, which had its Facebook page taken down last week, says that Facebook might restore the page if it updates the About section. We spoke with producer, writer, and host Rania Khalek, who joined us from the studios In the Now in Moscow.
There's absolutely a correlation between the content In the Now produces, which is adversarial towards U.S. government policies, both domestically and around the world, and its Facebook page is being censored. There's no question about that. And for the CNN's hit piece on In the Now, they interviewed me, and it was more like a police interrogation than an interview. It lasted 45 minutes, and the questions were incredibly invasive about my political ideology and why I have the views I have. But more importantly, the interviewer, Drew Griffin, asked me more than once why my views on Venezuela are in line with the Kremlin, why my video on Venezuela that I produced on the U.S.'s attempted coup there was in line with the Kremlin's talking points, he said, which was a shameful question to me for many reasons, one of which is that, this is the dangerous tactic of basically saying that opposition to U.S. intervention and meddling in other countries is just makes you a Kremlin stooge as opposed to your own government policies. But on top of that, it demonstrated to me that video really, CNN and the German Marshall Fund that went to CNN with the story did feel threatened by this video and feels threatened by narratives that are that challenge mainstream media narratives. They feel threatened by any narrative that challenges destructive U.S. government policies around the world, by any narrative that challenges U.S. empire. And their response to those narratives is not to engage in the content, not to engage in the facts that someone like me is presenting, but to censor, to suppress, to violate free speech. And that's what's so shocking here. And I keep saying to anyone who hates or hates what I say or disagrees with what I say or disagrees with In the Now, at the end of the day, this is an issue of free speech. And so it should be opposed on that basis. At the same time, though, it is absolutely an attack on alternative media, alternative voices.
For a number of weeks, we have seen Haiti ravaged by a series of violent protests against President Jovenel Moïse. Our correspondent in Port-au-Prince, Pablo Perez, spoke with Jake Johnson from the U.S.-based Center of Economic and Policy Research to find out more about the situation.
Hello, here we are in Haiti, and we are joined by Jake Johnson. He's from the Center of Economic and Political Research, and he has been here during the last events, the social surging of demands for the demission of the President Jovenel Moïse. And well, Jake, what do you make of the manifestations, the demonstrations that we have been seeing the last few weeks?
Well, I think, this is really a culmination of a lot of things and a lot of built-up frustration, over many months. And you've sort of seen this most recent thing building with fuel price hikes in January that were then rescinded. And again, I think, one of the main issues that's been the focus here is the issue of corruption, and specifically around Petrocaribe, and demanding that the government starts holding people accountable for what's happened with the money.
Yeah, but this is something new. This is something that it only you can only take accountable the last administration of Jovenel Moïse, or it's something that has been carried on over different administrations?
Oh, I think for sure this is something that's been building for years, and with the corruption this has been a problem for longer than this administration, the previous administration, and before. But I think what's really changed is that as the economic conditions continue to worsen, as people sort of see a government that functions for the politicians and not for the people, there's a real demand that there is something done to address this concern. And so I think you've seen a sort of renewed interest or renewed focus on these issues in this current context.
This is very important that whomever comes first at Haiti and sees Haiti for the first time finds a very particular definition of government, a government that leaves the people, that rules, but the people does not get back from the government. They do not get back education, they do not get back health. How can you describe that?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think, again, this is something that's been building for a long time and maybe coming to a head. But it certainly involves the role of the international community here in Haiti, where there's been a sort of parallel governance system that's been developed through NGOs and private actors, where these basic state services are not provided by the state. And you put that on top of an electoral system that has really sort of failed the people and failed to confer legitimacy on these political leaders. You saw this most recent election, less than 20% turnout. What does that sort of mean in terms of the democratic legitimacy of a government and its ability to actually supply the people with what they need?
So what do you think we can expect to see on the political life of Haiti on the next few weeks?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's, I think anybody who could tell you 100% what's about to happen is lying to you, frankly. But, I think what's clear is that Jovenel Moïse, the president, is facing an extremely difficult political situation. His allies are at least looking for more leadership, more something. He's clearly in conflict with his own prime minister. And so his ability to govern is certainly limited. Now, that doesn't mean that he's on his way out. I think what really depends is there some concrete action? Is there something that can sort of, at least get through this crisis? But I think the bigger question is, if this is just a blip, if there's just another Band-Aid, another temporary stopgap measure, we're sure to see more of this in the future, whether it's next week, next month, or in 6 months, it'll continue to happen.
What will be the most feasible solution for the people's problems in Haiti? Not the political problem, but the people on the neighborhoods.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the two aren't unrelated. There's the political conflict and the political fights that are happening are certainly impacting the ability for the government to provide for the people, to address those socioeconomic problems. And so until there can be, a political dialogue, a political consensus around what that might actually look like and what addressing these problems can look like, it's going to be very difficult. And unfortunately, I think that means, in the short term, the situation gets worse, not better.
Well, that's a very interesting insight. And this was Jake Johnson from the Economic and Political Research Center, and it's been with Pablo Perez here for Telesun English.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. The president of Ecuador has announced a controversial bailout agreement with the International Monetary Fund for $4.2 billion. Lenin Moreno said the loan was part of a larger package aimed at dealing with a growing deficit. In recent weeks, Ecuadorian trade unions and other movements have protested against layoffs, higher gas prices, and plans to privatize public companies. Our correspondent in Quito, Denise Herrera, has more.
Ecuadorian President Lenin Moreno announced Ecuador signed an agreement with the International Monetary Fund for $4.2 billion. Moreno described this agreement as a staff-level agreement between the IMF and Ecuador. Around $10 billion will receive Ecuador of financing. Also, $6 billion will receive Ecuador from different multilateral institutions, including the World Bank, the Andean Development Bank, and the European Investment Bank. Around $10 billion will receive Ecuador of financing. Today, during a press conference at the government palace, the economy minister of Ecuador, Richard Martinez, said that now Ecuador has to wait till the highest authorities of the IMF will reaffirm this agreement. So this decision has generated mixed reactions. Social organizations of workers had rejected these measures. We should remember that in recent days they took to the street, rejected these economy measures imposed by President Lenin Moreno. They said they are really worried about these economy policies that are affecting directly their rights. Also, in this context, it's important to say that currently President Lenin Moreno is facing an investigation related with offshore companies in Panama and Spain. This investigation revealed that the relatives of President Lenin Moreno are linked with offshore companies. So we will see if President Lenin Moreno said something about this. The government has denied all these allegations. And also we will see if the authorities of the IMF will reaffirm this agreement.
We thank Denise for that report. A former Chilean police sergeant has been charged with the murder of indigenous leader Camilo Catrillanca. The 24-year-old Mapuche man was shot by police while driving a tractor last year. The main defendant, Carlos Alarcón, has remained in preventive detention since the investigation was opened in mid-November. Catrillanca's murder sparked mass protests for months. The Bolivian government has launched a universal healthcare system that will provide free healthcare to more than half of its population. The program will begin next month.
The law that has put in place a universal healthcare system was presented by President Evo Morales to healthcare workers and social organizations.
Today is a historic day for Bolivians. This is a dream that we have worked for a long time, and now it's finally becoming a reality.
The Bolivian working class will defend the system because it benefits everyone in the country. We have to fight and to defend its implementation.
Now, more than half of the population will benefit from the universal healthcare system that will be run by the state and will be free.
Every region across the country will have equal access to this healthcare system. This won't be a centralized service that only benefits the regions of La Paz, Cocumba, and Santa Cruz. These places already have good hospitals, while the north and the south of the country are abandoned.
President Morales has assured all the beneficiaries of this program that all benefits will be gradually covered.
I'm sure, sisters and brothers, that no matter what government we have, 20 or 30 years, the people will defend their universal and free healthcare. That's why I say this is for life. It's designed for the most marginalized people and essentially for future generations.
But medical schools across the country, opposers of the government, have called for demonstrations against this law from March. They are worried that with this law, there won't be enough funding to keep the program.
We will be able to see the impact of this law in 3, 4, or 5 years. So I ask you to be patient, be strong, and remain together as a nation. But I also ask health officials to be patient and continue contributing to our system. And forgive my words, but those who reject this law are enemies of life. They are enemies of health and of the people who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford health care.
As of now, only children under the age of 5, people over 60, and workers whose employers paid health insurance have access to free health care. But with the universal health care system in place, more than 5 million people from marginalized groups will benefit from free health care.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. Vermont Senator and presidential pre-candidate Bernie Sanders has named Puerto Rico's mayor as one of his campaign co-chairs. Sanders said that in order to defeat Trump, a team must be built which is prepared to fight for social justice. For this reason, he named Mayor Carmen Yulín Cruz alongside Ohio State Senator Nina Turner, California Congressman Ro Khanna, and co-founder of Ben and Jerry's Ice Cream, Ben Cohen, as co-chairs. This makes Cruz the first Puerto Rican on the island to preside over a U.S. presidential campaign. Riot police in Spain briefly clashed with pro-independence Catalan protesters in Barcelona. A day of protest took place across the region against the trial of 12 independentists. They stand charged of inciting Spain's largest political crisis after their bid for independence failed in 2017. They all deny allegations of rebellion and misuse of public funds.
The verdict of this trial was already written 1 year ago. They will be declared guilty. This is a farce, but I guess they will not get as many years in prison as they think.
Female mayors of cities around the world have attended the 3rd annual Women for Climate conference in France. The forum's goal is to gather women leaders to find solutions to environmental issues. The conference is hosted by Paris Mayor Anne Hidalgo, the first woman to become a mayor of the French capital.
Today, however, the Paris Agreement is facing many challenges as several national states have withdrawn their commitment, while others have not moved fast enough. But we can't wait for them to move faster or to change their minds. It is high time to take the lead and build together the future we want, the future we can trust.
Protests have erupted in Albania against the government. Here's more on that and other stories from around the world.
Thousands of people have protested against the Albanian Prime Minister in the capital, Tirana, for alleged corruption and links to organized crime. There was a heavy police presence as an opposition rally last week turned violent. Thousands of students in Belgium have protested for a 7th Thursday in a row against climate change. Students were joined by Greta Thunberg, a teenage activist working to stop global warming and climate change. Student protests have been taking place around the world in recent months to demand that their governments take climate change seriously.
I am in favor of fighting climate change, otherwise in 500 years we will end up underground water because the water levels will rise that much. We should get moving because if the old people cannot do the right thing, the young people have to be able to mobilize the troops.
We've been here since the beginning. It's been several weeks and we'll be here every Thursday until the end.
German researchers have unveiled the first marketable blood test to detect breast cancer. The medical director of the hospital said that the non-invasive test is not meant to compete with conventional mammography. On the contrary, it's meant to be an alternative method to discover whether or not a woman has breast cancer. According to the World Health Organization, breast cancer causes the greatest number of cancer-related deaths among women. In 2018, more than 500,000 women died from it.
Sharks seeking warmer waters have been reeling in enthusiasts to the eastern Mediterranean winter water. As temperatures drop, the enigmatic predators head to the northern Israeli shore. This has become a spectacular destination for researchers and fans for 20 years. And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.